Welcome, Internet, to the PixelPlay Podcast, your weekly gaming podcast hosted by gamers for gamers. I am one of your hosts, Kaylan, aka Catastrophe, joined as always by my co-hosts Adam, CS Radical, and Chris at Jin and Chris. This week we're going to be talking about the suspected rumors that a new Switch sequel will be coming out in late 2024, talking about what we know so far, what we're hoping to see, what we're hoping they fix, change, keep the same, and maybe some launch games we think that are coming. And if you like that and more, you can find us wherever you get your podcast by searching for PixelPlay Podcast on wherever you get your podcasts. Or if you want to see us do it live, or at least with our faces, you can see us on YouTube and Spotify. If I sound so disjointed and my hair looks like a mess if you're watching me live, it's just because I've been outside all day today and I am exhausted. Yeah, with that, let's just jump into it, guys. I am clearly fried and been in the sun way too long. How's everybody doing?
That doesn't sound like something a JRPG king would do. You are outside way too much for that title.
In fact, you went outside. Just the fact you said that sentence.
I think we need to do a recall on the votes for whoever decided that he. Oh, wait,
that's
never mind.
Not how.
This is a
that's not how monarchies
isn't
work.
All right,
that's not how monarchies work.
So, Chris, we need to do a coup.
Oh, that's a lot of work. I have a lot of backlog.
My reign continues.
Your reign continues. Well, speaking of JRPGs, I finished Final Fantasy 16 in its entirety. That game is just so good. Like, yes, it has its flaws where it's like if you don't like the battle system, like you will not enjoy this game because that makes up a big part of it. But yeah, like the actual game, no spoilers or anything, obviously, because Kaylan's going to take you a while till you probably get there. Game was amazing. There's a lot of side quests. I do think that there was too many. But I mean, it's also hard when you say that because they are very optional, and the game's very good at telling you which ones are just side quests for like character development and which ones actually give you like an upgrade or something. Kaylan, which I actually learned through you, the JRPG King, because if you hadn't asked that question in our Discord, which everyone should go there, I would have had no idea because I was just accepting all of them. And I was like, why is this one a plus sign? That's weird. Then later, it's like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. The game is, though, amazing. The ending was amazing. Every major, scene in the game, amazing. I highly, highly, highly recommend it to anybody who either likes Final Fantasy or likes just action games, I guess. It's a really good, solid action game, I would say.
Yeah.
If you're a JRPG fan, I mean, you better like Final Fantasy. There's a lot of Easter eggs and stuff, obviously, in there for Final Fantasy, which kind of keeps that JRPG-ness. But other than that, very little JRPG going on in this JRPG. It's definitely an action RPG.
I've said before, there's also very little RPG going on. It's just G. It's just There's no J, there's no R, and there's no P. It's just G.
It's just game. It's a very game, but it's a good game. It's a GG.
I was playing it yesterday, and like it's good. Like I don't have any complaints. I was in a scene. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'll tell you, Chris, and you probably know the scene I'm talking about. It was the most 90s early 2000s sequence I've played in a while.
Yeah.
You know exactly the point I'm talking about.
Do,
so
yes.
Yeah, I was just like, wow, this feels like it's straight out of 2004. Like I was expecting like evidence to start breaking out. Yeah.
That's Final Fantasy sometimes. They like to do that.
But like, so for me, like the way I kind of describe the game, like the game is not bad. But I'm starting to find that like the polish is starting to come off. And I would say the game is just whelming. It's not overwhelming. It's not underwhelming. It's just whelming. Like it's middle of the road. Like it does some things amazing. It does some things not so well, but like it kind of just whittles out in the middle. Like it's good, but it's not amazing. It's not bad, but it's not. It's whelming. It's
whelming. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
still
like it. Oh yeah. I find that like there'll be parts where you'll spend a couple hours of just doing like, you're here, like nothing crazy is happening. You're just checking in with people, moving forward the story. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, we should go check this out. And then it just escalates to like Spinal Tap 11, and
Yeah.
it's just like hitting like as hard as it possibly can.
Yeah.
The like motion capture and voice actors are hitting harder than any recent movie I've probably seen in theaters. And then all of a sudden it's just we're back at the hideaway and everybody's just like, well, that was a lot. Anyways, we should go collect, 10 plants for this person over here who wants 10 plants.
This is also like everyone keeps talking about this being like a Game of Thrones style game. Feels more like a Dragon Ball Z game at times. Like at one point, like in this 90s sequence, and I'm not spoiling anything here, but like there's a point where I'm fighting this guy and we get launched up into the air and we're fighting in the air, and then I like kill him and like whatever. And like as like then there's a sequence where we're falling and we must be falling like for at least like 3 to 5 minutes. And then I'm like, how far down into the earth are we going? And it's like, oh wait, we're not. And we're still somehow in the air. Like trying to picture where we are from like a reference point is just mind-boggling. You can't figure out where you are.
Yeah, it's it's a lot. It's weird because like Final Fantasy had moments like that, but this has definitely been turned up to Game of Thrones meets Dragon Ball Z. That is probably the best way of putting it.
That's the way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. People are saying Game of Thrones like myself because we just looked at it and be like, well, clearly that's what they're trying to do because they're trying to get the casual audience in the door.
No, it does have some Game of Thrones elements. There's like a lot of like politicking and like different kingdoms kind of with their own agendas, stabbing and backstabbing and triple backstabbing. But then, yeah, there's also times where it's like, hey, remember that part in Game of Thrones where it was like a lot of talking, it was boring? Let's just have some Super Saiyan fights. And everyone's like, cool, let's do it.
I mean, that's JRPGs in a nutshell. It's like, in an anime where there's always like the filler episode where there's nothing to do, a video game will take that moment and just go, okay, but what if you were riding a unicorn in the air and we're going through rings, and if you win, you get this armor that's completely useless. But it was the journey that was the important part. That's a JRPG in a nutshell.
100%.
Yeah. Think that just only they don't give you armor in this game. That's literally
they just give
difference.
They give you crafting items that have no purpose, and
yeah,
they're like crafting. I was like, cool for what? I don't know. Don't care. Like,
yeah, I would definitely say that the crafting in this game, like you'd get a new sword pretty much every time you'd beat a boss, an item to build a new sword, and other than that, it was like cool, like very little armoring going on, especially compared to other Final Fantasies.
But I found when I was playing it, and like this is starting to get into review territory, still no spoilers, but like I would get, like I'd look at a sword and they're like, you need these items. I'm like, I have no idea where the hell I'm supposed to get these items. Like crafting means nothing.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what like items are for, so like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And before we continue, I will also say, Kaylan, because this will be important for you, I am 5.5 hours into Cult of the Lamb.
Yes, how is it?
It is, holy crap, so good. Like, it's not like it's this groundbreaking game where they're doing something amazing. It's an action dungeon crawler roguelite, I guess. I don't know if the roguelite's really in there. Mixed with a little Stardew Valley Animal Crossing village.
Yeah.
But you can murder people for points. Like
it's the juxtaposition of like this cutesy Stardew Valley Animal Crossing, but like with demonic, rituals.
Yeah, I kept showing as I was playing on my Steam Deck, which by the way is the perfect way to play this game. I was on the couch next to my fiance Alex, and I kept going to her, and I was like, "No, you have to see this. You have to see this." And she's like, "I'm so confused. Like it's all these cute little animals, but you're around a statue of a lamb whose eyes are bleeding, and you're all dancing. What's happening?" I'm like, "This is my cult.
I'm making people sheep."
It's like Happy Tree. It's like that old Happy Tree Friends like web comics they used to have.
Yeah, yes, very much like that. So I'm loving the game. Out of like, there's like 5 bosses or 5 dungeons or whatever. I'm done 2 of them. Yeah. I've been going pretty hard on it already. And I did name my cult.
What is it called?
Like the band Lamb of God, I went with Lamb Chop of God.
Love it.
I don't know why. I was trying to do. There was this show called Lamb Chop's Play Along
that
was on when I was a kid. And I was going to do Lamb Chop's Cult Along, but it was too long and it wouldn't fit in the spot where you get to put it in there. And I was like, aw. So then I went with Lamb Chop of God.
So funny story about Lamb Chop Sing Along. They have that song, like the song that never ends, right?
Yeah.
I always wanted to go to like a American Idol audition or something like that and sing that song. And when they're like, "Thank you," I'll be like, "I'm not finished," and just keep going. That was something I always wanted to do, but
Oh, I could
never
have
did it.
tried. No, it would have been too long. This is the cult that doesn't end. But no, that
Yeah,
is, yeah, that's too long as well.
nice.
Darn. But yeah, I'm
Adam,
loving the game, but
oh,
I'll have
sorry,
more later. Oh no, that's
nice.
it.
Adam, what about you? How's your Trails of Cool Steel? How's your Trails series going?
Well, I'll address the one thing that you guys said last week potentially. So you asked like, "Oh, you're gonna play the next game and you're gonna suddenly like not like it at all, or you're gonna have like new characters in there and
Burnout, yeah.
you're not gonna be interested at all." You're wrong on one part. I'm not burnt out one fucking bit. I will say though, the new characters that they've brought in so far, that like there are some that haven't appeared in the 3D games yet that are showing up. Like there's like an evil professor that's been kind of like in the background in other games before, but this is the first time since the PlayStation console games that he's popped up, and he is fucking great. But the new characters they brought in so far, like they're not bad, but like I don't know if it's because there's already so many that I can't attach to anymore, or if it's just that they're not, because these specific characters that they have are maybe too far down the anime trope part that even I'm like, all right, guys, settle down. We don't need this. So I want to put footage on the screen, but it would all be spoilers because it's literally ending a bunch of arcs. So if I put any gameplay up, it might reveal shit. So that's the one part I want to show footage and I can't. But
Just theater of the mind, Adam. Don't worry.
I know I'm almost nearly done it already because I know I'm in the final act. It's probably what most JRPGs do, which is the first 3 acts were easy to go through, and now here's the 4th act. It's actually going to take you about the same amount of time it took you to do the 3 in total. So
Yeah.
what I will say though, that it's not really a spoiler. They probably do the best dungeon that I think I've ever played in the series. And for those who have played the series entirely, Trails in the Sky 3 had a similar idea of this. So it's a dungeon that exists in a parallel universe where you can pull everybody together for for just a bunch of random crawling and grinding. Because normally it's you take a small group, you're in this certain area, you go through that. In this dungeon, you slowly collect more and more characters, whether they're party members, people that have never been party members before. So they start bringing in it's basically like an all-star cast that they just put all together in here. And they have, your typical dungeon, but you start unlocking certain things. So you'll get these orbs that unlock what they call daydreams, which are like these little small side stories that show you like what happened at a different point in time. Some of them are just meant to be like just funny little like silly stuff that happens. There's also mini games in there, like there's a quiz game. There is obviously a summer thing where you play like the splitting the watermelon mini game, and there's a banana boat like racing thing. And they have like their own version of a I guess it's sort of Tetris, but it's what's a good game? It's almost like a Bejeweled sort of thing too, but I can't explain it well. But they have like a bunch of little mini games. They have like a really, really bad like shoot 'em up like not bullet hell game, but it's one of those like sort of like top down like shooting things and trying not to get hit sort of games. And it's based on magical girls, so they go in full on like anime modes, so they just pull that stuff. So it ends up being a lot more of the fun side of things. But what I like about it is that you can keep refreshing it, so you keep the treasure chests keep reloading. And in the early parts, it's when you want to reload it because you'll unlock more outfits, more accessories, more materia or quartz. Like it's quartz and trails, but materia is the easiest way for most people outside of trails to understand what that means. And other items and stuff. So you can actually you can grind as much as you want to really overlevel if you don't want to think about stuff, or if you're playing on the harder difficulties, it's imperative that you probably do it because otherwise you're going to get your crap kicked around. But like they have these orbs also that pull up almost like a gacha system where you can pull like 10 items, some being ultra rare, some being just regular rare, and they can range from, like I said, materia, other outfits. So you can get I have characters now that have like 15 different outfits now because of like all the stuff that they're pulling from different games. Some have more than others. The Cold Steel ones tend to have more just because back in the old days with the PlayStation Portable games, they weren't exactly doing a lot of DLC back then, so outfits weren't coming nearly as quickly. But I like it a lot because it's a very easy way to grind, and it's also one that doesn't involve you concentrating. So you can literally just throw it, like, it's a great podcast moment for me if I'm missing something and I really want to watch like an hour or two long thing that I've missed. I could just grind in that dungeon for a bit and get some work done on that, and then unlock some more stuff. Now it's to the point that I don't need to do the dungeon until it unlocks more stuff as I get deeper in the story, because I finally hit that limit that I'm just like, oh, I have all of these things. Okay, well, I guess I'm just getting more copies of this same item that I don't need anymore. But hey, it's a JRPG. I always have 50 of an item that I never use, but I have to have it in case I need it this one time.
Yeah, you have like 773 of this one like ore in your pockets at all time. It's like, where am I keeping this?
I mean, I have at this point somewhere around 300 to 400 of what I can only describe as rare candies. They don't quite level you one by one, but they put a bunch of experience points on there. If I really wanted to, because they level cap it, so whoever your highest person is in terms of level, that's how high you can boost people up to. So thankfully, you can't just like get 200 of them and just go, I want this person to be level 200 now. No, you have to actually properly grind the guy up to whatever level, and then you can get everybody else to match up. So if you don't want to even grind either, as long as you put one person in your party at all times when you're doing this dungeon, they keep the level cap up because they're the ones always getting an XP, and then you can just keep bringing everybody else up if you don't want to do the extra work. So it's nice that that's an option as well. So it works really well in that. And then apart from that, like, as I said, I'm getting close to the end of the game. The story is, I want to say, I don't even know if I want to say it's good yet, because I feel like it hasn't gotten to the chance to really turn and show its hand yet. It's doing a good job at pulling everything together in a clear manner. Like, it's not like as enthralling, but at the same time, this is a new story that's just finally finishing off any loose ends. So there's not like a big stakes moment that we've been working towards. It's all just restarting all of a sudden now. Because realistically, at the end of Cold Steel 4, it's a finite end. Like, you definitely tied up everything you needed to. So anything that they create now in Reverie is kind of just like, well, we needed one more game just to finish all these like little things that we haven't done yet. So here's this other event we're just going to throw in there. And in the beginning, it's really shocking, and I actually got legitimately pissed off, like, in a good way, though. Like, the good, like, oh, I want to fuck this guy up so bad. But now as the story gets further and further, the person that I told you guys about that you don't know who it is, he's just got a mask on, the reveal was definitely shocking, and certainly not what I would have guessed if you gave me 100 tries. But at the same time, was it the best, like, scenario? No, I think there could have been, like, cooler ideas they could have done. But, like, it makes sense with the story they're trying to tell. And I agree with most of the reviews that I've seen, too, that they're doing a great job at balancing it so that you don't feel like one's getting more attention over the other, and none of them are, like, one story is weaker than the other. I mean, if your bias is going to tell you that you like a certain group of characters over the other, then it's going to be easier to swing that way, but I don't feel like they've done anybody dirty. I think everybody's getting a good chance to shine, including characters that normally didn't get that chance. So I appreciate everything they've done so far. I'm just waiting. I know they don't have the balls to do it, but there's one specific moment that if they pull, because it is a loose end, and again, I can't spoil what it is, but like I said to my girlfriend recently, because she was asking me like how I've been doing it, because she knows that in the last Cold Steel game I was very emotional about it. So there have been two specific moments in this game that I've teared up, but not actually cried. There is one specific thing that if this game does, and it would finish off a character from Sky as tying up one big loose end that they've been going through for 10 games now. If they pull that, I legit will fucking like Superman cry if that happens, because it's such an emotional thing. I wrote at length to my girlfriend what it actually is, and she was like, yeah, that would be pretty crazy to play through 10 games of, and it finally comes to an end there. So it's one of those things where, again, like, it's such a daunting task for people to get into, but my God, is it worth it if you pull through it all, because the amount of stuff that has happened, and even just seeing people show up again and like meeting friends they haven't seen in like, in some cases, like 4+ games, it's kind of cool to see that too. Because it's almost like, you know, when an Avengers movie comes out and all of a sudden here's this person you haven't seen for like 5 movies and you're like, ah, shit, he's back. So there's so much of that cool stuff too, and I'm having a blast with it. Would I put it with the Cold Steel games right now? Probably not, but it's because it's hard to weigh it against a story that built rather than one that's basically like fan servicing itself before they go on to the next arc in the Kuro series, which from what I've been told is a absolute, like, there's almost no referencing at all to the previous 3 arcs when you go into the 4th one that's coming in. So I'm definitely curious to see how they really tip their hand and finish this. But I'm not going to sit here and probably tell you when I finish the review of it going, yeah, this is the best thing they've ever done. I'll probably be going like, this is a fine way to end it, and I'm glad that they did it, but I just want the next arc to start now so I can go get myself completely lost in another place. Until then, I will just bide my time until I guess I'm probably going to be starting Cyberpunk after this. So.
Yes, finally. Just in time for Phantom Liberty.
I mean, that's my guess, but at this point, you never know. Like, something like I might just decide, you know what, screw it. Let's take a look at 16. I have that option too. There's a few directions I could go, but Cyberpunk's kind of on the brain right now.
To be fair, it's a weird year this year. Kaylan's playing JRPGs. You're gonna play Cyberpunk.
It's not a weird. I played it at launch.
You tried it at launch.
That's true. That's true. I tried to play it at launch, I should say.
Yeah. Speaking of launches, the rumor going around is that there's going to be a new Nintendo console in late 2024. There was an article going around about, like, I guess like dev kits have been going around, and they got leaked. Nintendo's obviously not released anything, but so far the rumor going around is that it's gonna be late 2024. It's keeping the portability of the Nintendo Switch. Cartridges are still a thing, and it's going with a LCD screen because it's cheaper than going with an OLED screen. So my question to you guys is, what are you guys thinking the next Nintendo Switch, like, what does the next Nintendo console look like? Because for me, what I'm thinking is, I think it's going to be a Super Nintendo Switch. Like, that's pretty much what it's going to be. If you look at the pattern and the history that Nintendo has, Nintendo, yes, changes the system they change their consoles quite regularly. But if you look at a pattern, it always kind of goes in, like, 2 consoles are somewhat similar and then they do a change. So if you think about it, like, the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo, for the most part, are very similar systems, right? And then N64 and GameCube, very similar systems. And then the Switch and the Wii, and the Wii and the Wii U, very similar systems. So my logic, if I'm following a pattern, is I think that the Nintendo Switch is going to be followed up by, like, and I'm calling it the Super Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo hopefully calls it that.
Switch.
The Super Nintendo Switch.
No, just
the SS. I actually hope they do call it that. Either of those names for me would be perfect. I think that would be.
And then I'll be able to put, like, a Vegeta, like, hair sticker on the top of it and be like, "This is the legendary Super Switch."
It's over 9,000. Yeah, I think.
Oh my god! If they just called the Switcheroo, the Super Switcheroo.
I don't think that would sell well because parents would be confused. They were already confused with the Wii U. This is something that would the Super Switcheroo. They'd be like,
console. There's always going to be a weird name, so it's going to be the Switch, but it's going to be the letters are all reversed.
The Switch.
I wasn't even going to hazard a try on that one.
What would it be? It'd be
Wish.
Trying to think how it'd be, like the SWIT, the twists. I don't know.
It's not easy.
It's not gonna work very well. I mean, I think we can all agree though that, like, they should be sticking with the formula they have. In fact, I don't even think, like, if we talk about a third console after this, I don't think they should be switching off this, for lack of a better word there. I think they found the right formula.
Here's a rule, guys. Every time we say the word Switch now, we have to go. That's the rule now.
Every single time.
You do your thing. I'm good. But, like, I think they found the right market because they found one that already covers the ground that DS had lost by taking that off the shelves. But they've also had one where it still works fine for console gamers. Like, obviously, you're not going to get your biggest, games out there because it just simply can't support them. And I don't think that a Switch 2 or whatever they decide to do this next console is going to be any different. They might be able to keep up they might be able to bring games that wouldn't work on the Switch right now and do it, but it's gonna throw me off now that you keep doing it. But it's gonna get to
That's
a
how you
point
pronounce the
again
name.
where they're not going to be able to keep up again with what other consoles are popping out in the same way that, like, there's going to be a game that this new console is going to have where it's another Witcher 3 sort of game that, wouldn't have worked on the previous generational hardware, and then they just do it another version of it, and we're just like, all right, I guess this one's only going to run in 30 frames per second, maybe it might, if it can hold it. I don't know what you do to make such a gravitational change with this thing. I honestly think the best thing they can do is just make it a better version of what they already have. If they go back to LCD, I know that's going to disappoint a lot of people because a lot of people are preferring the OLED now. But I think the core thing that needs to be addressed right away is just a little bit more processing power, and the battery life needs to be improved a lot. If those two things can be covered and still keep the same price around that, I think that's mostly a good enough start, and then you can work your way up from there. But like, those two things immediately have to be addressed to make it even remotely worth a console change. You have to make it more powerful, and you have to make that battery much better. Because I mean, it's not bad for what it is, but at the same time, like, unless you have it docked, but if you're playing it portable, like, it's gonna run out, especially if you're running something pretty heavy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think from a business standpoint, they couldn't do a normal console again. Not yet. If they just did like an actual home console, or tried to, let's say they tried and they're like, we're going to do like a PS5 Pro level performance system on the TV, I think that it would hurt them more than actually benefit them, because it's a Switch, right? Like this, sorry, it's a Nintendo console. I have to imagine like 60%, maybe even more, of Nintendo sales are aimed towards kids. And when I say kids, I mean, maybe like 14 and under or something like that. It's mostly parents buying systems for people who can't buy their own system. And if a parent goes to, like, I used to work at Best Buy in Canada here, and I worked in the video game department for a while. Back, of course, when it was like Nintendo Wii, Xbox 360, PS3, when parents walked in and they had no idea about video games, first, they went right to Nintendo because they know the name. But two, the price difference was like Nintendo was like $300 and everything else was unaffordable. If Nintendo tried to make a PS5 level or PS5 Pro or something that would be like next gen or current gen whenever they release, I think the thing would be like $600 and Nintendo wouldn't sell as much as they do now. And it would just hurt them. Even if it would be like, for us gamers, we'd be like, oh my God, Unreal Engine 5, Legend of Zelda, holy crap, looks amazing. They're still going to lose a lot of business if they try and switch back into some sort of mainstream kind of console. I think they have to stick with what they have, because they need to not just have the Switch for everybody. They need to be able to do things like create the Switch Lite. Does that count too? Okay, it counts. They need to create the Lite, because they need, like, I know so many people in my own family who are not gamers that have a Switch Lite, and it's just something that they have because it's just like, oh, Animal Crossing or the odd game. Like, it's almost just like a step up from mobile games sometimes when really you think about it. So they need to kind of keep the same market, because they've got their niche market. They're not competing with anybody else except maybe cell phones. Nothing else truly does really come close. No one's going to stop buying a PS5 or Xbox, whatever their preferred system is. That's where they play Assassin's Creed. That's where they play Call of Duty. They're not going to all of a sudden want to play those on a Nintendo, even if it was more powerful, because they've already still got their PlayStation, Xbox. They're not leaving that ecosystem. Because
especially
like,
when you know that you're not carrying your games with you either, because most likely if this console comes out, the chances of it being backwards compatible are less too, because it's going to be such a shift in hardware.
Yeah, exactly.
So the rumor, sorry, so they are going with still a cartridge based console, which would then indicate that backwards compatibility is a possibility. Yeah, so for me, I'm thinking like, yeah, I think Nintendo's going to stick with the portability aspect. That's a given. I think they got a little niche area. There's some competition, I guess, in the cloud streaming with Xbox, and you've got your Steam Decks, or PlayStation's coming up with whatever the hell they're doing. Like, who knows what that is? But like,
I'm not gonna act like they're gonna be competition.
no,
to
and
this
that's why
thing.
I'm just very dismissive when I'm saying it. But like, it's not Nintendo's not alone anymore in this little corner. Like Steam Deck, I think, is a very good competition now, especially for the older crowd. For me, if I was Nintendo, and I'm not saying that this is what they're going to do, but I think this is probably where they should be going. Is that, yeah, I think as they get further and further, like as the gap gets bigger between what Nintendo's doing and what third parties are doing on other consoles, I think that there is a problem where Nintendo's going to be relying more and more on just single party games. And I think for the most part they do already. I don't think a lot of them are banking on Assassin's Creed to sell Nintendo consoles. Where I think Nintendo can improve isn't so much like the handheld console. Like, put in some better chips, better processors, blah blah blah. That's a given. What I think I could see them doing, and what I would advise if I was sitting at the boardroom at Nintendo, is I'd be putting time and effort into the docking station. Like, use it in a situation where the docking station is an up-reser and a higher resolution. It bumps it. Put like a graphics card in there. Put something in there that when you dock your Switch, your games now go on a higher resolution. They get higher frame rates. Build it in that, maybe one thing that Nintendo looks at is they look at doing more cloud streaming. So what they can do is that, hey, you want to play Cyberpunk, right, on your Nintendo Switch. Well, obviously the handheld system is going to take some graphical hits on it, but if you cloud stream it to your dock, then you can now play it through a cloud gaming service, and then the processing power isn't so much of an issue. I kind of look at where the industry's going. What are some of the trends? And one of the big ones is cloud streaming. And I think if Nintendo wants to stay relevant, they don't have to keep up with graphical fidelity and stuff. But if they just said, hey, we've figured out how to do cloud gaming, and it's now available through your docking station. We don't do cloud gaming on the handheld. That is strictly dedicated towards handheld. It takes a dip, it takes a dive. You trade that for the convenience of being able to go anywhere. Then great. And then what Nintendo can do is Nintendo could come out with their games and be like, hey, Legend of Zelda, whatever, whatever the sequel is to Tears of the Kingdom that comes out, that one has a portable version that, here it is. It works on your portable. It looks great. Plug it into your docking station. Now you're getting an up-res version. You're getting better performance. You're getting better, like the gameplay doesn't change, but it just up-reses it. And so I think where Nintendo has room for growth for the biggest part is putting some guts into the docking station other than just being a glorified HDMI port. And that's what I think they would be doing.
Yeah, and it would be an interesting idea if they went a little bit hard on the cloud part, because I mean, I'd be curious to know, but like from people that I know that own it, like more often than not, I see that Switch owners are more likely just to buy the physical copies, which kind of negates the purpose of cloud on that console, considering you can just plug the little flash card into their Switch and take it with them, and there's no dip, because how could there be? There's no connection involved in it. So it would be interesting to say the least. I think as you said too, like they need to do something to kind of, it can't just be like a basic upgrade. When I said just the processing and the battery, like that was just hardware wise what I think needs to be done. After that really does become the follow-up, which I know we were going to talk about eventually, would be the library and how else you can use your console. Because quite frankly, I have no reason to use my Switch. Because I mean, these days, like, I don't know how many people need to use YouTube on it unless you're taking it with you, but in which case your phone also does that. So that's still a moot point. But like, if I'm docking my Switch, which is 99.9% of the time that I have it in my house, I have a smart TV. I don't need my Switch for apps. It's not necessary. So if not for gaming, if the Switch is going to have any sort of other applicability, I'm not sure what specifically that is, unless they get really crafty with it. Because I mean, you have like the IR sensors and things like that you could use to like do some weird gimmicky things. And it's Nintendo, for God's sakes. Like, we can guess as much as we want. They may pull some unbelievably like rabbit out of their ass that no one would expect. I mean, who thought they were going to suddenly after the success of the Wii, turn around and put a tablet on there? And when it was so glaringly obvious, they didn't have to change a goddamn thing with the Wii, and they decided to go weird with it because, of course, they did. That's my one concern with the second Switch or whatever they decide to do, by the way, is that they're going to do the same thing again, where they look at the numbers of what the Switch has done and go, all right, let's do that again, but in order to make people buy this one again, we have to completely adjust what this console does. No, Nintendo. You're not going to do the same numbers no matter what, because you're very unlikely to have families buy the same thing again. That's why the Wii did so well, because it had a gap. Whatever this next console does, don't think you're doing 125 million again. Just make it what phones do, which is a better version of the hardware they already have. Because people will eventually upgrade if it gets to a point where the games are so much better that you're going to want to do so. So that'll work on that front. But if they suddenly start attaching all these weird extra things to it, it's going to be another Wii U. There's no question.
A tablet that attaches to the tablet. It's going to be the Switch DS.
Like they're going to do like Nintendo Google Glasses. Like they're going to do something weird to go with
They
it.
did those already.
Why, Nintendo? Why?
Yeah, they did the Labo or whatever the heck
Yeah,
it was
the Labo,
called, right?
yeah.
That's the new Switch is made of all cardboard. That's the Switch. It's do not
Eco-friendly.
let it go near water.
I mean,
Well, to be
it's
fair, I
less
wouldn't let
likely to
my- I
break
would-
a TV then.
To be fair, I also wouldn't let my current Switch go near water either.
This is true. Do not put them in water. Yeah.
The cardboard is irrelevant. I'm not letting my Switch near water either way.
Yeah, I definitely think that it just does need to be a more powerful version. And there's lots of stuff that they can do with that. I think, Adam, you were really smart mentioning like phones and how they upgrade, because phones are all backwards compatible, right? For the most part, whatever apps or games or whatever heck you were using on your previous phone, they'll work on your next phone. They just might run and open that much better, faster. And obviously when it comes to games, higher resolution, higher frame rate. I think it's very important that with Nintendo, if they do this switch, when they do this switch, that they actually do make it first backwards compatible. I think that at this point in the game, that's incredibly important, because if parents go to buy a new one and they're like, oh, all the games you already have are useless, they're going to probably just walk out the
You've
store.
lost
They're like,
them.
okay,
You've already
well,
lost like a
yeah,
chunk
well,
of people there.
it's not going to happen. These are parents buying a system for their kids. And when they're like, oh, I want to play Minecraft. Oh, sorry, you have to rebuy Minecraft. Dads are
I don't
going
know.
to flip tables.
I'm gonna put a pin in this right now. As the dad of the group, and I know I'm like niche in the fact that like I've got a video game podcast, but like I think we're getting to that point with like adults and parents that like we understand like, hey, it's a new console, it's a new generation. Like, yeah, it sucks, but like it's not like the moms of the '80s who are like, why don't you go play the Nintendo? Like when they're just talking about video games, like we get it now. Like I think.
No, but you
It
as a
still
parent
sucks.
still, especially if you're strapped for like if you're only going to be spending like this much for like if it's Christmas time and this is like your budget, are you really going to buy something when you have to realize that you've bought this thing and your kid's going to get bored of it almost immediately because there's nothing to do on it again, because you have to go and just start from scratch again. And I think also even from like if we're not talking from the parent side, like from a casual gamer or a hardcore gamer perspective, the other competition all do backwards now, so there's no reason that Nintendo can't, especially when they just put a new console.
I guess what I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying it's not, like, certainly having backwards compatibility, it would be awesome and it would be the better way to go. I'm just saying, like, I think the days of mom and dad being clueless at the video game store is kind of becoming.
I wouldn't say clueless, but they wouldn't look at the value being positive on it anymore.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the same way with like as an adult with my consoles, like, hey, backwards compatibility is definitely better than no backwards compatibility.
And also, just to flat out say it, it would be unacceptable if it wasn't, because there, like, unless you're making that drastic change, there is no reason whatsoever that the games on Switch can't run on something else. Because if I'm pretty sure somebody right now, if they figured out a good way to jailbreak it, they could just make an emulator that would work on PlayStation. It would work just fine. So, I mean, considering that emulation for Switch already works pretty decently on PC, there's no way that you can't figure out a way to make these things backwards compatible. So if we suddenly found out, I mean, from all intents and purposes, everything I've read kind of shows that that's the plan. But like, if we suddenly found out that it's not, I'm literally going to come on the show and be like, they better change their fucking mind right now, or I'm going to trash this console every fucking episode until it does.
Yeah, 100%.
Because that would be the dumbest decision apart from making another stupid gimmick that makes no sense.
Every Nintendo portable has been backwards compatible too. Like Game Boy Advance played Game Boy, the DS played Game Boy Advance, the 3DS played DS. Like they always had one.
You see the DS played Game Boy Advance?
Yeah, the DS had the slot at the top, but also had a slot on the bottom to put Game Boy Advance games in.
What?
Yeah. It only worked on one of the screens, but you also got to pick what screen. You could move it to the top or bottom.
This is the first I'm hearing of this.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. It made
Cool.
transitioning into the new system a lot easier.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But I think that also Nintendo will need to go one step further because this is something they have never done, but Xbox and PlayStation both have. And that is where they upgrade some of the older games for the new system. And I don't mean rebuy. I mean that if you put Tears of the Kingdom in the new Switch, all of a sudden, I mean, if it's portable, they're probably not going to up the resolution. It was already 720p on a 720p screen, but now it runs at a flawless 60 frames per second or something. Kind of like where you'd put an Xbox One game and load it up on your Series X, or a PS4 game on a PS5 and they've been upgraded. Same game, it's just now it runs at 4K 60 because you bought the new system. Here you go, God of War looks great. I think Nintendo would need to do that and give the option, obviously, for all their third-party developers to do that too. When I say third-party, I'm more talking like the indie games, stuff like that. I don't think that, I mean, Assassin's Creed and stuff is on the Switch. They have like the Ezio collection, the Borderlands collections on there, the BioShock's collections on there. Arkham Knight series is coming on there. I think those would do great as well. And, maybe they could get the free upgrade or something. But I think it's more for the first party titles for sure. And then, of course, indie games that were probably struggling. And that's where they make a lot of money. Indie games kill on the Switch. They do so well that I think, them having the option to go in as a developer, update their game to run better on the newer system, but still be available to those who bought it would be a huge, huge selling feature.
I forgot that the Batman Arkham games from like the PS3 are coming to the Switch. I forgot that, and I'm waiting for them to charge $60 when you can get them for like a total of $30 on any of any other system.
100% it will.
Yeah.
I still think the big thing that is going to be what I think needs to be done. Like, again, hardware is a must. They need to do something with their customer model in terms of their online platform that is worthwhile, because again, I'm going to keep saying this. Tell me what the point is of expansion pack or Nintendo Switch Online. What is there? What is the value? I literally am looking at the Wikipedia page right now for it. To this day, there are still only 16 Game Boy and Game Boy Color games available. That's it for an entire, like, how big is that library? I know that not every game needs to be on there, but like the fact that the entire like business model of that seems to be its retro lineup. I know there's more to it, like there's the extra stuff that you get for, say, like Animal Crossing and Mario Kart, but let's be honest, a big part of what it seems to keep advertising is, oh, we're adding N64 games to it. But how many are there since they've announced it? Like maybe 20 at most?
Yeah.
But you see, here's the thing, because I'll counter that, because I actually look at the Nintendo expansion and I'm like, I kind of want to get it. Like, granted, I have too many services as it is.
Well, it's
but
a
like,
lot cheaper, so it's easier to stomach.
It is. But you're also getting, like, granted, PlayStation has a bunch of games, but like Nintendo, I find, has like a smaller catalog, but like there's games that I always want to play on there. Like, I'm looking right now and they've got like the original N64 Legend of Zelda there. Same with the Game Boy ones. And I'm like, I'm kind of feeling some Legend of Zelda right now. So like, that's appealing to me. Like, I know that there's like quality games on there that I haven't played in a long time. It's got a sweet spot of like affordable and high quality. Is there much? No, but it's a lot of good stuff. And like,
yeah, but I still think it's unacceptable, the sheer like lack of stuff that's on there. Like, it's just not, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I know that it's not going to be used nearly as much, but like, that's a core of what you're selling the expansion pack for. That's a big core of what it is. Because I mean, realistically, like, what are the other features? Like, there's the extra stuff that comes with it. There's like a little bit of multiplayer. There's cloud saving. Like, that's really it. There's not like in the same way that PlayStation Plus has their monthly library. There's no free games that come with it. There's no like things like Game Pass. Like, it's a cheap service, which is why it's not that expensive. But at the same time, like, again, if you're trying to compete at any aspect, I don't think they're ever going to compete with the hardware, because I think if they try to put, like Chris said, a PS4 Pro level console, they will lose so much market share, because most of their games do not need that level of graphic fidelity. Mario does not need to run on that. Zelda could, but I don't think Zelda is necessarily best at that point anyway. I think it's more better off being the cartoonish thing it is. So most of the games they're going to run anyway don't fit with that level of graphic fidelity. So you're got one of two options. You either have to make a service that's got a bunch of things to do on it, or your games have to shine. And we're going to talk about games eventually, but I don't think it's going to change because it's still you're going to get 2 to 3 decent games a year. And then after that, it's a bunch of indie titles that you're going to have to survive off of.
Yeah. I think sticking with hardware before we wrap that up, like the one area that I wish Nintendo puts more effort, like goes like to R&D for, is I hate the Joy-Cons. Like the Joy-Cons are, I get what they're trying to do, where it's like, hey, there's like 2 controllers out of the box, and like you can play with your friends forever. Those controllers suck. Like my
It'd be
hand
nice
gets
if there
like
was some sort of attachment to it, so that way it at least fit a little bit better for like someone who's not like 5 years old.
I just say dump it entirely. Like I'd say get it so that it is more ergonomical, because the flat little disc thing really sucks. Don't make it that you need both, like they're interchangeable. Like I hate it. Neither controller feels good when you're playing multiplayer with those little switch things. Like get rid of the Joy-Cons, redesign those, make them ergonomic. That's pretty much my biggest issue that I have.
I think Nintendo really dropped the ball with Joy-Cons. It's not even with the ones that come default with it.
Mhm.
I think it's that there is so much customization they could have done, and they would have made money doing it, and they didn't. Like, for example, I do use the Switch Online service, mostly the like NES and Super NES games, especially the Super Nintendo ones. I was playing Donkey Kong Country a little bit yesterday, and while I was playing, the D-pad doesn't exist, first of all, because it's the Joy-Con has just those 4 buttons. And second of all, even if it did exist, it's in a spot that on the Switch, because of the shape, like having your thumb down where there would be the D-pad, like just not feasible. Like it's just not something you can do. So I had to play with the joystick or whatever you'd call that thing on the Joy-Con. And it's just not great. But imagine like Nintendo also released like, hey, here's also a Joy-Con that has a proper D-pad, and the D-pad's at the top and the joystick is at the bottom instead of it being the way it is. It doesn't come with the system, or maybe they'd put an extra one in there, but like, hey, for $40, you can go to your local store, buy this other Joy-Con and switch it out. So you can customize your Switch to play the way you want to play when you're playing portable. Like, hey, this one's great for old retro games. Proper D-pad, it's at the top. Oh, you're playing a game that you'd be better to have the joystick at the top? Perfect. Tape that Joy-Con off, put the other one back on that came with it or whatever. That's, fine. You're more of a pro gamer and you want more of the, split pad pro, like Hori has those like, big Xbox controllers that you can basically put on the side of the Switch.
Did you just say you're a pro gamer on the Nintendo Switch?
No.
That's like an oxymoron.
If someone were to be a program, hey, Splatoon is a very big esport. I don't know. I don't actually know if it is. No, but if you're somebody who's used to your Xbox, your PlayStation, and you want a proper controller, third-party companies had to make different Joy-Cons for the Switch. Like there's one, I have it. I don't use it because it's way too bulky for what I like, but it's basically an Xbox controller split in half that goes onto the Switch, and then you can take it and you have it like a proper actual system. It's basically the size of the Steam Deck after that. But again, Nintendo could have made their own version of that, cleaned it up and made it very Nintendo, not as bulky, but still more of a controller, a pro controller split in half that goes right on the Switch. Like they could have come out with a whole bunch of different versions and let people accessorize and customize, sorry, that's what I meant to say, their Switch for their actual own gaming play style. And they just kind of came out with the Joy-Cons and they just kept coming out with different colors of it. Like they didn't even try for like a proper D-pad or anything, and they would have made money. They could have come up with these things and sold different colors and different shapes and different whatever with the different button. Yeah, different
sizes.
sizes.
Come up with like a pro or ultimate version of the Joy-Cons that you could use, kind of in the same way that like both PlayStation and Xbox have their like extra like pro expensive controller.
Yeah. Like they missed the mark with having all of this because like me, I know I play Switch all the time. It is like, it's Nintendo games and indie games, like you were saying, Adam, but still, I do play a lot of indie games, and some of them are very retro inspired, and a D-pad would be great right there at the top. And sometimes I'll pick up that game on the Steam Deck just because it has a proper D-pad in the proper spot. So I don't know. I think they really missed the mark on a possible business opportunity.
So let's like pivot over to that from the hardware side. I don't want to go in like all the games that they're gonna have because like it's hard to predict what a console's gonna look like. But like, what games do you think would be in the launch lineup? Let's say the first 6 months or so. Like, with the Switch, we had a Mario Odyssey and we had Breath of the Wild. Which games, which franchises, which IP do you think Nintendo would lead in with the the Super Nintendo Switch?
Well, I think we know it's not going to be Zelda. So unless they're remaking, like, I don't know, Link to the Past or something, but
Oh my god.
But at this point, like, I figure because the Mario game that we're getting this year is a side scroll, I wouldn't like, let's assume that the date of mid 2024 is real, right?
Yeah.
I would not be shocked if they've been working on a successor to Odyssey in this entire time period, and that's getting ready to go. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
We have not gotten a 3D Mario.
One.
That definitely is an immediate one. And Zelda, like you said, makes no sense. Tears of the Kingdom just came out. They're not going to have even the time to create a good, big, like, new system release Zelda. It would have to be something like a Link's Awakening remake like they did, which would be fine on the side, but it wouldn't be like the system seller like Odyssey 2.
One that I could see them doing is either like one of the ones that I'm thinking of is I can see them making a Donkey Kong because they haven't made a Donkey Kong game since Tropical Freeze, and that was back on the Wii U. So I feel like Donkey Kong needs some love.
Imagine I was gonna say, imagine they release the Super Nintendo Switch and they actually go back to showing how many bits the system has, like the N64. And then it's like Donkey Kong 4,968 or whatever the bits would be. It's obviously much higher, I assume, than that at this point, but still, that would be pretty funny.
I mean, we also know Mario Kart 8 is going to get another re-release.
No,
can they please just give us 9?
I say that not even jokingly. I'm not even like, I have a feeling that they might just they might just be saying, fuck it, we'll just keep doing tracks.
That's my thing. Like, where do they go with Mario Kart? Because like Mario
Kart, duh.
They did already with the Rainbow Road.
Yeah, that was the first game.
No. Actual spaceships.
Like, they're kind of getting to the point with like, this is the problem that Nintendo has with like a couple of their franchises. Like, where do they go with something like Mario Kart 8, Smash? Like, those games have pretty much peaked, I think. Like, you can't not have them on your console, but they're also like, I feel like they need to go dormant for a bit.
Yeah, because like Smash Brothers Ultimate or whatever it's called has every character you could possibly ever think of, and the game has every stage you could think of. It's not missing anything.
It literally has Metal Gear. It's literally starting to steal, like, it's taking crib notes from other franchises and other consoles.
Yeah, and they had like 5 DLC waves of more characters. They can't just release another game and it like not have all of that. And even if they did, it's just a re-release of the same game. Like they would, I think, need to go dormant for a little bit. I'm sure there'll be an update where that game will run better, or you have to pay for an upgrade, or I don't know. I'm sure they'll do something, but as for a new Smash, I couldn't see them doing it right away, at least.
No, they would never start with a Smash. Like they usually would work their way into that in like 2 years.
I could see them like putting Mario Kart 8 to rest for a little bit, and like bring out something
like I said, I'm so jokingly on this, but I'm almost positive that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna put it out again.
What are they gonna?
I could see them making like Mario Kart Live or something like that, and just make it like an online sort of interactive thing. And that's like an area that Nintendo hasn't done super well, and they can put Mario Kart into a live service, and that's a game that I feel like makes sense as a live service. But they could also put that to bed.
Technically, it already is because you just get more tracks.
No, but you can like do like tournaments, you can do seasons and stuff like that. I don't know. That, or you put Mario Kart to rest for a bit and you either bring back Diddy Kong Racing, or you bring back like F-Zero. Like, I feel like you go with one of your other franchises.
I think both of those I think would actually be really good, especially Diddy Kong Racing.
Would be ideal. I don't see it happening.
Like F-Zero, especially if you're coming with a more powerful console, like that would be a way to show like, look how awesome this looks doing like an F-Zero going super fast.
Yeah. It's Nintendo's Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I doubt it is because they haven't done one since 2004. So
that would be a perfect reason.
The 20th anniversary of the last game.
Yeah, but they won't. If anything, you'll get like, I don't know, Pikmin racers.
Instead of F-Zero, it could be like F0.5 or something, 0.5. I don't know. They could like really run with it. The future's here.
F4998 bits or whatever it is.
See?
Okay, fine.
That's
We won't get Mario Kart. We'll just get like Mario surfing.
I mean,
joke, but that sounds kind of good.
I mean, they probably. I don't think they would do a sports game at launch because they never seem to. It always seems to come within like the next 12 months. Because like I don't think golf or which one came first? Was it golf or tennis? I think golf came first.
Tennis
came
on
first.
the Switch. I think tennis came first.
Yep.
But either way, like those won't come out right away. I would like them to do something different again. Like I know they did a baseball one a while back. I'd love to see. They would never do it, but I would love to see them do a straight up hockey game. I know they did it in like their sports mix like thing they did, but it wasn't like a full flat out game. I think if you're more likely picking one, they would do a basketball one.
I was gonna say, have they done
no,
basketball?
it would be baseball. Wait, Japan. It would be baseball first.
No, I can see it being basketball.
Well, I'm thinking if they're going to build a new sports game that isn't like the main three that they've been doing for a while, which has been tennis, golf, and soccer, I would be more likely to think baseball just because that's the big thing in Japan. Basketball is not a thing on their minds over there, so.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't see them doing a sports game.
When did they last do one?
I don't know if they've ever done a basketball game.
I think it would have been Super Sluggers would have been the last one on Wii, I think, wasn't it?
I don't know.
That was on Wii. That could be the last one, yeah.
So I don't think they've done one since, unless they've done one like either on DS or as a part of like a random collection of things.
I know this new Switch is going to have some sort of stupid collaboration game that's supposed to show off the console.
Oh, like 1-2 Switch?
Like 1-2 Switch or Nintendo Land
there's
or whatever.
Especially if they have a new dumbass gimmick. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's got to be a Wii Play. There always has to be a Wii Play. Here's the 20 minigame collection that you're going to literally throw in the trash 2 days later.
Yeah. Yeah, those don't stick around very long. I never even picked up 1-2 Switch. I don't want to.
No,
we're
don't.
not 55,
I don't want to 1-2.
So.
I don't want to
do
1-2 Switch. The new one will be 3-4 Switch.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna move on to another franchise. So
no, that's fine.
Because I'm like scrolling through the list here. Like, I don't see Metroid being a thing. Because I mean, Metroid Prime 4, I'm assuming is like Half-Life 3 at this point. It's just never happening.
But you know what?
They
did just release, like, they've had 2 Metroids this year, and both of them have done amazing in terms of reviews. Like, maybe it is time that Metroid gets that Legend of Zelda moment.
No, if we're going to get another Metroid, it's going to be another M2. Let's not kid ourselves. There's been 2 good Metroid games in a row. Something's got to give.
One must always be sacrificed.
I also think, too, with Pokemon, that probably does. Because Pokemon never seems to launch on a console.
No.
It's always a little bit later. And
There'll be one in the first 2 years. Easily.
It hasn't been too long since, oh my god, what's the new one? Violet and something?
Scarlet and Violet?
Yeah. I don't think it's been long enough for there to be a significant gap. Like, unless they throw something like a Pokemon Stadium, which again, I keep going, why haven't you done a Stadium 3?
That would be really cool.
It's not a story mode, it's just battles, mini games, just do the fun stuff. I still don't know why they haven't done that. I don't think they'll bring Star Fox back.
Star Fox definitely would be a launch one.
That would be
that's what I was thinking.
Honestly, and this is just my opinion, I think it's in the same vein of like, why isn't Disney doing a Treasure Planet or an Atlantis live action movie? It's because they've done so poorly that they don't want to bring them back. I think Star Fox has now had enough strikes on it that I don't know if they want to concentrate on it.
Nah, bring Star Fox back.
F-Zero never did well enough that it's just gone away. Like Star Fox is a Smash character now, as far as I see it. I don't see anybody clamoring for a new Star Fox anymore.
That's because they don't know what they could have.
Yeah,
it could be beautiful.
I mean, there's some cool stuff you could do. Like, I mean, we were literally just talking about it yesterday because one of my friends is now doing shows on GDQ, and they had a SSX Tricky. I think they own 1080, don't they? I think they own the
Oh, yeah,
licensing rights to
Maybe.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be theirs. Yeah, they need a good they need to bring back a couple franchises. Like that would be really good.
Mhm.
The Golden Sun RPGs or whatever it was
Because like
called. I think that's
especially we're
theirs.
talking about like a console that we don't expect is going to be that much of a shift. Like the library is going to be the bigger deal now, and I think like bringing a couple of classics like that back to the forefront would be great. Again, we did talk about Star Fox and F-Zero, but I have my reasons for thinking why they don't. I think that other ones that go harken back to like the N64 GameCube days would also be a big help in getting some
Oh, yeah.
attention back, or even ones that were like only DS specific back in the day too.
Yeah, that's the thing because now it is the portable and home console in one.
Mhm.
It does make sense to kind of grasp at both of those libraries and kind of bring in games from each.
Because like just scrolling through a little bit, you got a couple options. Like you have a big one, but I don't think they do it. Would be like another Earthbound game, doing something
No,
like that.
it's
Or
way
even,
too niche.
yeah,
That would be insane if they did, but I don't
but
think they
like
will.
Kid Icarus is out there. You know what? Why isn't Nintendo Dogs on Switch coming in yet?
I hate that game.
You guys want to talk about missed opportunity? Why did we never ever get another Duck Hunt in either the Wii era or in the Switch era?
Because
So I
it
feel like
seems
that
to be
would
like
have
a
come up.
mini game thing to people, so they never really fleshed
And
it out.
Nintendo has
Like,
never
I can
once sold a
imagine that
mini game
being
to
like,
us.
you know how there was Nintendo Land for Wii U?
Mhm.
Like it could be something like that where it's part of a package. I think that also falls into what we said earlier with like the 1-2 Switch gimmick where there's the mini game compilation that shows off the console. Here's
was-
one that I just realized we didn't get on Switch. No Punch Out in this generation.
Mm.
Oh, true. That's another one that they could bring back. As I could see that maybe also being kind of like in the launch window, not as like their heavy hitter, but just as a light hit. No,
And then in terms of also with 1080 Wave Race is also one that I'm just looking through the list. That looks like one that they own the licensing to as well. So
What are these? Are these like launch games? Because I don't know.
well, but we've already
they
gone
are.
through the main franchises. Like at this point,
Yeah.
unless you want to delve into like the third party stuff that they could bring over. Like I don't know, is Cyberpunk going to be on Switch too, and run terribly like The Witcher 3 does?
I mean they got it running on the Switch. I could see them doing it.
I think for me, if it's gonna be a launch game, it's gonna be in Mario, some new IP that's like a C tier thing, and then something that you know. So I think it's either gonna be like Donkey Kong, Kirby,
Oh, Kirby. Jeez.
maybe Metroid. Those would be
Okay,
the
so
ones that I
here's
think
the
would be
fun-
like the launch
Here's
ones.
the fun test we can do. So between actual release and when it came on Switch, it was about a 4-year gap between Witcher 3. So what could possibly be out in like 2019 or in this case 2020 for 2024? What could be a really good option that came out in 2020 that would go there? All right, Metacritic, help me out here.
I honestly think it's Cyberpunk. And it runs at 20 frames per second and it's very low res.
Best video games of 2020. You know what? Persona 5 Royal already makes sense because they have Strikers on Switch and still the actual game it was based on isn't on Switch.
I could see that being a launch title of the new one, just as
Yeah,
like one of those
maybe.
side third party. For first
Maybe.
party, it's going to be Mario Odyssey. That much is for certain. I think Kaylan, you're right. They're going to have like a C tier new IP, kind of like they did with ARMS.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah,
what
they
it
did
was
with
called.
ARMS,
on
yeah.
Switch. And then I could see Kirby. I do see Kirby. It seems to be like kind of becoming a bigger thing. I could see there also being a Kirby game, since I don't think there'll be a Legend of Zelda for a while. I
No.
think Kirby would kind of take over that spot. It could be Metroid. I just don't see it being Metroid.
I don't
Not
think it's
because-
Metroid. The more I think
yeah.
about it, I don't think it's Metroid. I'd say I'd replace Metroid with Star Fox. So I'm thinking
I
either
also
Kirby,
realized
Donkey
too
Kong,
we didn't even
or
mention Animal Crossing because it's been since 2020.
There will be an Animal Crossing. I just don't think it'll be at launch. Actually, maybe now
that
because
might
it
be a
became
good way to launch
such-
it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it definitely grew in popularity. I don't think it was ever a launch title on like the DS, the 3DS. I think it started on GameCube even back then, but I don't think it was ever a launch title. But this new one, like, it became such a huge hit and reached gamers that it had never reached before. I could
Oh.
see Nintendo being like, I think it's time that we start using this as a reason to have the Switch.
That might be a
Could be
good way to
Switch.
like do a launch game if you can do like, hey, remember playing Animal Crossing, how good and cozy you felt? Well, we got a new one and it's on this console. Like it
Yeah.
might. It's a double-edged sword because you can either push the needle and do awesome and get people to buy it, or they may want to wait for them to have that player base and be like, hey, remember when?
Yeah, that
So-
is true.
So Cyberpunk
Yeah.
does fall into that range in 2020, so it could work.
I thought you were being sarcastic when you were looking up.
No.
Like I thought you were just leading up to it.
So here's a couple other fun ones because I keep scrolling through. It would never happen, but this would be really funny. Death Stranding.
I could see Hideo Kojima making an appearance just because he does at everything. Like
I
he
can
was
see
at
that.
the last Apple keynote. He
I
just
can see
showed up.
Norman Reedus just showing up as a character on Super Mario or Super Smash.
With an Animal Crossing crossover where Norman Reedus is also a character in there.
Just riding a
One-
bike through Animal Crossing.
One that I saw, and obviously Kaylan's gonna hate this one because he thinks it's stupid, but Yakuza games aren't on Switch still.
Yeah, and that I've
Yakuza
played-
0 is 2020.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense because every time I've played those games, I immediately started to want to play them portable, and now it's like a Steam Deck only kind of thing for me, just because of the nature of the game. There's so many like side things to do and mini games and all that. Like it just makes sense portably, and on the Switch would make a lot of sense. A lot.
Do you think they'd put any of the Resident Evil remakes on there?
Not as a
Ooh.
launch game.
Not as a launch game, but I could see them definitely ending up on there because I think the Switch is like just behind on being able to run those because apparently the Resident Evil remake games will run on almost potatoes. Like they just are so well created. I could see them putting them on the new one again, just as like filler in that first 2 years where it's kind of like, hey, look what else is coming. We're re-releasing this, kind of like what they did again with Borderlands, BioShock.
You're missing the
stuff.
obvious one.
Which is
Skyrim's
that?
getting re-released on the
Oh,
Switcheroo.
for
Oh,
sure.
Oh, right. Sorry, my bad. My mistake.
On the Switcheroo. So
It's already the
'Cause, like,
legendary.
I'm looking
so I need a
at
new one.
the list that came. There wasn't really like a big third party one, so I guess that's kind of not really falling into it. Because
but I don't think you also want, I don't think you want to re-release either in your launch window. Like,
No.
hey, we got this new console. Look at this old game that you played before. We now can play it now too. It doesn't look good on a launch console.
Well, I
No.
mean, yeah, but when you also look at the title they had, if you don't count essentially Breath of the Wild, it's not exactly a good lineup either. So Switch is probably that case of like it, or the Switch 2 would be whatever case of it's gonna be headlined by one thing and then the rest of it is meh.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I thought Nintendo, like the launch lineup for the Nintendo Switch wasn't bad. Like having like Breath of the Wild and Odyssey, like those are
Odyssey,
both
I don't
great
think Odyssey
games.
was launch, was it?
It was
I
in the
think
first
so.
6 months. It was in the first 6 months. It wasn't ready for launch.
Yeah, because I think when the launch, I think it was Breath of the Wild.
I'm looking at day one titles from IGN. It's not listed. It is part of the launch window of like in the
Yeah,
within,
and that's what I'm
like-
saying.
Yeah, it was
Well, because
like
if that's the case, then
months after.
yeah, like any of the third party games that I name, they work because it's within 6 months, right?
Yeah. So, anyways,
But
it'll be
I
interesting to
think
see.
if we're talking day one, it's probably whatever big Mario game they decide to come out with, and then 10 other things that don't exactly matter, most likely.
Oh, we are so dumb. Why did no one say Just Dance? Everybody knows the new Just Dance is going to be on there for launch.
Because that just depends what when it comes out in the season. Because just
they'll-
Dance
they'll
comes out in
wait.
November.
They will wait.
Ubisoft.
Ubisoft will wait. They just want that on Switch. I don't even think they care about any other system.
That's
It's
true.
like the lineup that Switch actually have was 1-2 Switch, Just Dance 2017, Breath of the Wild, Skylanders, also rip Skylanders, man, that pissed
Oh.
itself away fast. That was
Yeah.
that decade's Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
Super
No,
Bomberman
you
R,
mock, but like Skylanders actually did have an area. We just weren't the market for it.
It did
Oh,
what Guitar
100%.
Hero did. It did fucking unreal numbers for a while and then killed itself because it went too hard
Yeah.
too fast. I Am Setsuna, Snipper Clips, looks like extra stuff for Shovel Knight, and then Fast RMX, which I have no idea what it even is. So like,
Classic.
it's not exactly great unless you're a Zelda fan, or like Bomberman wasn't. I remember looking like, oh cool, Bomberman, and then immediately seeing the reviews and being like, oh, Bomberman.
Yeah.
Oh no! What happened to you?
No, Bomberman. Yeah,
what did
that
they
was
do to
not
my boy? Look what they did to my boy.
I think the two guarantees is at this point, just based on the timing, a big Mario game, and then whatever gimmick game they come out with, and then after that it's fill in the blank with a bunch of randoms. There might be like one gem in there, but it's going to be mostly like you're there to play this one thing, shut up for the next 3 months.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, we will just have to wait and find out in 2024. But, ladies and gentlemen, you do not have to wait for our next episode. You could go right into our back catalog and find them all wherever you get your podcast by searching for PixelPlay Podcast or on YouTube and Spotify, PixelPlay Podcast. If you've already seen all those, don't worry. We've got new episodes coming out every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to be part of the show, submit questions to have a chat with us. We have awesome fans in our Discord. Those can all be found in our link tree, linktr.ee/PixelPlay Podcast. Once again, linktr.ee/PixelPlay Podcast. We look forward and hope to have a chance to chat with you. Once again, I've been your host, Kaylan, aka Catastrophe, joined as always by my co-hosts, Adam, CS Radical, and Chris at Gin and Chris. Thank you so much, and we will see you guys next week. Bye for now.